My name is Raven, and I used to believe I could read a room. I could look at a seating chart and tell who was fighting. I could hear the tone of a quick call and measure the oncoming storm. I could watch my husband tie his tie and know if today would be a joke day, a silent day, or a day that required walking on edges. But nothing in my private little skill set prepared me for the florist who said the wrong name into my right ear. It was a Wednesday, late afternoon, that hour when light leans gold and even bad news tries to look pretty. My kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner and roasted garlic. My phone rang with a cheerful chime I had set for unknown numbers so I could ignore them without guilt. This time I answered because I was waiting for a delivery. A bouquet. Peonies. My favorite. A small tradition Ethan and I kept for our anniversary, flowers, then dinner, then the two of us pretending time had been gentle. "Hi there," the florist said, voice bright. "Just confirming delivery for tomorrow." "Happy anniversary, Elena." The knife did not slip. I did not gasp. I did not do anything a camera would have loved. I said, "This is Raven." A pause. Paper rustled. "Oh. I am so sorry. Must be another order. We have 2 anniversaries for Mr. Ethan on file. Same card. Same message. 2 addresses." She laughed nervously, the way people laugh when they hope you are the kind of person who lets things slide. "Isn't that funny?" "It is something," I said, and my voice sounded like it had stepped into a colder room. After I hung up, the kitchen did not tilt, the floor did not become a cliff. The only thing that changed was the way sound carried. The hum of the refrigerator stretched long. The clock on the wall made each second stand up straighter. I walked to the sink, turned on the water, and watched it run until it stopped sounding like a river and started sounding like a faucet again. A florist's mistake. That is what I told myself as I dried my hands. A typo. A data merge. Some other woman with my husband's common name on her card. Except Ethan's name is not common. That was the first kindness our parents gave us, names no one else in our class would answer to. He loved that about himself. He liked being one of one. I wiped the counter, not because it needed wiping, but because sometimes you need to erase something you can control while the thing you cannot control sits on the table and dares you to touch it. I opened my laptop and did not type his name into a search bar. I typed mine into a blank document. A single word at the top, timeline. The first entry, florist. Double order. Name, Elena. Anniversary, tomorrow. When Ethan came home that night, he set his keys in the bowl with the practiced grace of a man who knows where all his noises live. He kissed my cheek. He smelled like cedar and the night air that sticks to suits. "Tomorrow," he said into my hair, and for a single heartbeat I considered the mercy of pretending I had heard nothing. "Tomorrow," I echoed, and I did not pull away. He poured 2 glasses of wine, one for me, one for the version of himself he believed I still adored without question. We cooked together. We ate. He told me a story about a client who thought slides were strategy. I told him a story about a neighbor who could not keep a plant alive and blamed the sun. We laughed at the right places like people who still fit. In bed, he turned toward me with a softness that has its own gravity. I turned toward him because you can know you are leaving a house and still turn off the lights as you go. He fell asleep faster than he does on anxious nights. He slept like a person who has divided his life into boxes and believes all the lids are on. At 3 a.m, the ceiling became a white page. I lay there, pen on the nightstand, hand on my stomach to keep the feeling from rising into my throat. I did not want to be angry. Anger eats you and calls it dinner. I wanted to be precise. At 7, I sent a message to my manager that said, "Taking tomorrow. Personal day." She replied with a heart because she is a person who reads between lines and chooses kindness even when she cannot know what it is for. At 9, I called the florist back with a voice that sounded like coffee. I asked questions I already knew the answers to because it matters who says them out loud. Same sender. Same card. Same message. 2 addresses. One in my city. One 3 hours away. Delivery scheduled for noon. At 10, I showered and put on the kind of dress that looks like you have secrets and none of them are going to break you. At 11, I packed a bag. Not a runaway bag. A notebook, a charger, a sweater, a pen that does not skip, and 3 plastic folders labeled receipts, screens, and calls. At 11:30, I opened the timeline document and added 3 more lines. Called florist. Confirm 2 addresses. Do not confront. Confirm first. Anniversary will not be his anymore. I locked the door behind me, turned the deadbolt slowly, and walked to my car. The day was bright like a dare. I started the engine. I picked a playlist that would not tell me I was brave. I do not need music to lie to me. I can do that just fine without help. What I needed was distance and the kind of thinking that happens when the road becomes a line and you become a person who follows it. I drove toward another woman's flowers. The highway was a long sentence with no commas. I let it run. The city slid behind me, and with each mile the florist's slip stopped feeling like an accident and started feeling like the kind of truth that hides in plain sight and bets you will be too polite to name it. 2 hours in, I pulled into a rest stop and checked the florist's tracking link. The second bouquet had been out for delivery since 9. I copied the tracking number into my timeline and beneath it typed, "If I am wrong, I will delete this entire document and plan a vacation." I wanted the record to hold not just what I found, but who I promised to be in case I found nothing. Back on the road, the landscape softened. The city I was headed toward was one of those towns people say they adore, and what they mean is it looks good on a weekend. River. Brick. Cafes that know which mugs to use for which stories. Ethan had started traveling here more over the last year. He said the firm was expanding. I believed him because love makes you believe a lot of things, and one of them is that the person you chose will tell you when your world needs updating. At 1:30, I parked on a street where the map said the second address lived. Red door. 2 steps. An iron railing that looked like a question mark turned into a fence. A blue recycling bin with a sticker that said Elena and Ethan. My face did not move. My hands did not shake. My heart did something I cannot name because some sensations do not have words you can pull from a polite dictionary. The florist's van pulled up. The driver got out with a cheerful bounce of someone who delivers the pretty part of life. He carried a bouquet that matched the one that would be waiting at my house when I returned. Peonies. Soft and romantic and ridiculous if you think about the life cycle too hard. He rang the bell. A woman answered. She was beautiful in the way women are when they do not know they are being watched by someone who would want to save them if she did not want to save herself more. Dark hair. A sweater that said she was inside a story with soft lighting. The delivery guy said, "Happy anniversary, Elena," and she laughed like someone who thinks the world still knows how to be kind. I could have walked away. I could have driven home and confronted him and said her name out loud like you say a password that opens a door to a new room. Instead, I took a photo. Not of her face. Of the recycling bin with the sticker, the bouquet card in her hand with Ethan's name, the house number. I put the photo in the screens folder and the guilt in a box labeled later. I sat in my car and called a number I never thought I would use. Attorney. Not a billboard. A name a friend had given me once when I had joked about writing my own prenup because I write better than I sleep. Noor answered on the second ring with the clipped calm of a person who sees storms at breakfast and still brushes her hair. I need advice, I said. Do you need triage or a plan? She asked. A plan, I said. And a pocket for triage in case the plan breaks. We met at a coffee shop where the tables were too small and the barista knew how to spell complicated names. Noor wore a suit the color of certainty. I showed her my timeline. I showed her the photos I would admit into evidence and the ones I would not. She listened without touching her phone. When I finished, she said, "Do not confront. Document. Secure assets you are entitled to." Decide what outcome you actually want. Not revenge. Remedy. Remedy, I repeated, because some words fit better than the ones you reach for first. Do you want to tell her? She asked. I looked out the window at the river pretending it was still in charge. Eventually, I said. On my terms. Not on his. She nodded. Tomorrow is your anniversary? Yes, I said, and the word tasted like metal. Then we will make it yours, she said. Not his. Not even hers. Yours. We drew a map. Practical things that sound cold and are actually just warm in a different language. Separate account. Change of address for certain statements. Place a hold on joint credit activity. Draft a notice to his firm about travel reimbursements routed to a personal card, in case he has turned the company into his accomplice without asking it to sign. Draft a letter to myself about what I will and will not do when the world begins to tilt. I left Nor with a folder full of later today and a promise to send her the florist receipt, the recycling bin photo, and anything else that felt like a brick. Before I drove back, I did something that will sound cruel and was, in fact, kind to the future. I walked into a small shop that sold paper and asked them to make 2 place cards in heavy cream with gold ink. 1 red Raven. 1 red Elena. On the back of each, I asked the clerk to write 2 phrases in very small letters. On mine, I owed myself this. On hers, it was never you. The clerk handed me the cards in an envelope like a secret. I tucked them into my notebook behind the timeline and felt the world click into a slot I had not noticed was empty. On the drive home, I did not listen to music. I let the dates in my head line up like soldiers. First bouquet appointment ever. First overnight for work. First time he started wearing his ring on a chain because it gets in the way of typing. I added each to the timeline at red lights. It is amazing how much of your life can be reconstructed from calendar invites, if you are willing to see yourself as a detective instead of a romantic for 5 minutes. I pulled into our driveway at 7. The peonies on our porch were soft and white and smelling like a promise made by a person who could not keep it. I carried them inside, set them in water, and wrote a card that simply said, tomorrow. Ethan arrived 15 minutes later, holding a cake box like a medal. A tradition, he said, and smiled the smile that had closed so many of my doubts before they finished their sentence. Tomorrow, I said again, and kissed him like a person who has decided how the next chapter ends. Anniversaries are choreography. People pretend they are spontaneous, but the good ones are made of phone calls you do not see. I woke at 6 and began to move quietly through the steps. First call, the restaurant Ethan had booked. I knew the place because Ethan loved to make a show of pretending we had accidentally secured the best table in a room that does not know how to do bad ones. I called the manager and asked if he had a reservation under my husband's name. We do, he said. Private booth. Fixed menu. Chocolate thing at the end with sparklers. Add a second reservation 1 hour later under Elena, I said, and my voice did not stutter. Same booth. Same menu. Same sparklers. Ma'am, we do not double book booths, he began, and I stopped him with a single sentence. This is not a double booking, I said. This is a reveal. I will pay for the room between. Silence. Then the manager exhaled with the weary relief of a man who has seen enough to recognize the truth when it does not ask his permission. We will arrange, he said. Do you need privacy? I need control, I said. And a moment. We mapped it out. Ethan would arrive at 7 with me. Elena would arrive at 8 with him, because men who keep 2 lives often keep the same scripts for both. The manager would seat us on opposite sides of a frosted glass partition that normally makes strangers feel like they have secrets, and tonight would let 2 women measure the weight of their own. Second call, Nor. The accounts are secured, she said. The joint line is frozen until both parties present. Your letter to his firm is ready, with facts only and no adjectives. Thank you, I said, and meant it in a way that made my throat feel tender. Third call, a courier. Place cards to be delivered to the restaurant at 5. The envelope with heavy cream and gold ink felt like a talisman in my hand. The clerk at the paper shop had folded the flap with care, like even paper deserved dignity. At noon, I sent a message to Elena. Not on social media where pain becomes performance. A private email to an address I had found in a tax record attached to the recycling sticker company because data is a river and there are always small docks if you look. My subject line was a date. My body was 3 sentences. Ethan is not who he says he is. Tonight at 8, ask the host for the booth under your name. I will not make a scene. I will make space. I did not attach photos. I did not send the timeline. I did not put the weight of my homework on a woman who did not ask for a test. I sent those 10 words and put the rest in my lap. At 3, I showered and chose a black dress without ruffles. I braided my hair in a way that kept it off my face because I have learned that grief is messy enough without adding strands to tuck away. I folded the dress from last year back onto its hanger and slid it to the back of the closet. That dress belonged to a woman who believed peonies meant forever. This dress belonged to a woman who knew peonies mean you kept something alive for one more day, and maybe that is the whole point. Ethan came home at 5 with a bottle of wine and a look that said he liked tonight's choreography. He kissed the side of my neck in the kitchen. He told me I looked like an answer. I let him, because there is a difference between letting someone finish a sentence and letting them keep the pen. At 6:30, we left the house. He drove. He told a story about a colleague who spilled coffee on a spreadsheet and what everyone said about it. I laughed in the right places. I watched his hands on the wheel and thought about how many things look steady when you only look at them from one angle. The restaurant's lobby was a lantern. The host smiled the way hosts smile when they have been briefed by a manager who said, "Tonight we do our job and we do it with grace." "Happy anniversary," he said. "Your booth is ready." We slid into a semicircle of leather and low light. The frosted glass glowed behind Ethan like a gentle moon. A violinist played something that would have been romantic in a different room. The server set water down and said he would give us a minute. Ethan reached across the table for my hand. "To us," he said. "To us," I echoed, because sometimes you let the last line land before you change the script. We ordered. We ate. The food was as good as the website promised and as irrelevant as a well-written cover letter when your resume lies. I understood why people love this place. I also understood that a good room can be a bad room for 1 hour and a holy room the next, depending on who is speaking. At exactly 8, the host parted the curtain on the other side of the glass. A woman's silhouette. A laugh that had not yet been told it should hate the sound of itself. The server led her to the other booth. The glass glowed a little brighter, as if light had opinions. Ethan felt the air change but did not know why. He glanced over his shoulder at Frosted Shadow. He turned back to me. He smiled, but had hitchhiked on something that was not joy. "Do you want dessert?" he asked, and his voice tried to pick up the pace as if speed could outrun structure. "I want a minute," I said. He tilted his head, confused. I reached into my bag and placed the envelope from the paper shop on the table. I slid the 2 cards out and set one in front of me. Raven. I slid the other to the edge of the table where the light could kiss the gold. Elena. Ethan stared as if the cards were a magic trick and he was not sure if he should applaud or call the police. "What is this?" he asked. "A seating chart," I said. "For the life you arranged without asking me to pick a chair." Ethan's face did something I had only seen once, the day our water heater died and the ceiling bowed like a tired back. He looked up as if the glass might tell him a different truth than the one sitting in front of him with gold letters and a steady hand. "I do not know what you think you know," he said, and the sentence made me tired in a way sleep never fixes. "Sit still," I said softly. "This is going to go better for you if you try telling the truth, even if it is late." He opened his mouth to begin a script. I shook my head. "No," I said. "No monologues. Just answers." A server slipped into the space beside our table, as if the room itself wanted to have our back. He set down 2 small plates and a tiny carafe of something that smelled like citrus and apology. He did not look at Ethan. He did not look at me. He moved like help and then vanished into his job. On the other side of the frosted glass, a woman laughed at something the host said. The sound landed on me like a hand you recognize even if you have never held it. Ethan flinched. "What did you send her?" he asked. "A table," I said. "A choice. A way to hear the truth without you telling it to her as if it were a favor." He leaned forward, voice low. "Raven, do not do this here." "Where would you like me to do it?" I asked. "In a hallway? In a kitchen? In a text at midnight from a number she does not recognize? You chose this room the moment you ordered 2 bouquets with the same message and 2 reservations in 2 cities like time zones or silos." His jaw clenched. The muscle there pulsed like a heartbeat you can see. He reached for the card with Elena's name as if touching it could change the ink. I moved it back with 1 finger. "You have been busy," he said, and tried on a smile that belonged to a man who thought they could joke their way out of a burning building. "Busy is a word people use when women do not fall apart on schedule," I said. He sat back. "Fine," he said. "Yes. There is another woman." "Wife," I corrected. "Do not be dramatic," he snapped. "Do not be euphemistic," I replied. He blinked at the word. He always hated when I brought Latin to a fight. He pinched the bridge of his nose and said, "We were not working. You know that. You are always in your head. You are always building lists. You make our life a project plan. And you make our life a story where you are the main character and the stage rotates to keep you in the light," I said. "How long?" He looked at the glass instead of me. 2 years, he said. Almost. Almost. A word that has ruined more good things than I can count. On the other side of the glass, a chair scraped softly. The server asked, "Water with lemon?" I heard a yes. My name did not cross the partition, and for that I was grateful. She did not owe me the dignity I was trying to give her. She owed herself whatever she needed, and if that turned out to be anger thrown like a plate, I would join her in sweeping it up. I took a breath. I placed a small white folder on the table between us. He looked at it like it might bite. "What is that?" he asked. "Remedy," I said. Inside, copies of notifications to freeze the joint line of credit. A list of accounts closed to transfers without dual approval. A letter to his firm about travel reimbursements, routed correctly going forward. A draft separation agreement that Noor had written without adjectives, as promised. 2 lines highlighted not because I wanted drama, but because clarity is kinder than negotiation when someone has gotten used to never having to. "You cannot do this," he said, voice rising for the first time. "I already did," I said. "I am not here to beg you to choose me. I am here to stop you from choosing both of us as if that is intelligence and not cowardice." He reached across the table with his hands open in a pose that had always softened me. "Raven. We can fix this." "We cannot fix what you will not name," I said. "You kept a wife in another city, Ethan. You used travel like a curtain. You handed me peonies and her peonies and thought flowers are better than facts." He looked at the glass again. "Is she going to come around?" he asked, and the pronoun made me want to leave the whole world. "She is going to do whatever she wants," I said. "What you are going to do is listen." I lifted the card with Elena's name and tucked it back into the envelope. I placed my own card on the table in front of me like a little flag planted in a small square of land I had just cleared. The manager appeared at my shoulder with the kind of timing that makes restaurants holy. He did not look at Ethan. He looked at me. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Please bring the partition down." The glass slid slowly, like a curtain that knows better than to make a sound. Elena looked up. Her eyes were not mine. Her face was not mine. Her expression, for a single beat, was exactly mine. That shock that lands quiet before it becomes anything else. She looked at me, then at Ethan, then at the cards in my hand. I held out the envelope with the one that carried her name. "This is for you," I said. "It says it was never you." She took the card. Her fingers did not brush mine. She did not owe me that grace. She read the small line on the back. She nodded once, not to me, not to him, to herself. Ethan's mouth opened. Elena held up a hand without looking at him. "Do not," she said. Her voice was not loud. It rolled across the table like a new law. A process server does not have to wear a costume to be effective, but tonight ours wore a vest and carried a wine list. The manager had arranged it because sometimes the best way to do a hard thing is to tuck it inside a ritual that knows how to behave. The server approached with a small leather folder and the same posture men have used for centuries to deliver both bills and news. He set it down in front of Ethan. "For you, sir," he said. "You have been served." Ethan stared at the folder like it featured a menu from a life he did not recall ordering. He did not touch it. "Take it," Elena said, and her voice did something I wanted to applaud without making this feel like a performance. He slid the papers out and scanned. His face flushed the color people turn when they realize gravity applies to them too. "Separation," he read. "Asset freeze. Notice to employer. Witness statements." He looked up at me. "You brought witnesses?" "I brought facts," I said. "And I copied the people who needed to know. Your firm will want to understand why travel reimbursements were doubling without a corresponding line of approvals." He laughed, brittle. "So this is revenge?" "This is consequence," I said. "If I wanted revenge, I would have brought your friends." The restaurant hushed and then hummed again, that peculiar kindness of good rooms where strangers pretend to be deaf to give you a little dignity. The server refilled our waters. The violinist set his bow down. The manager drifted to a station where he could see without staring. Elena folded her hands on the table like a woman about to be told bad news in a doctor's office. "How long?" she asked Ethan. He looked away. "Almost 2 years," he said. "Almost," she repeated, and the word tasted as ugly in her mouth as it had in mine. "Did you marry me before or after her?" I asked. He kept looking at the space above our heads, where the ceiling met the wall in a line that never noticed the people under it. "Before," he said to me. "After," he said to her. Then he blinked, realizing he had chosen truth by accident. Elena swallowed. "Were you going to leave her?" She nodded toward me without turning. "Or me?" He rubbed his face like a man trying to wake from the life he built. "I was going to figure it out," he said. Elena laughed, a sound that had no humor and a lot of oxygen. "Men love to figure it out," she said. I slid another small envelope across the table, this one with a USB inside. "Timeline," I said. "If you want it. No pressure. No contact unless you ask me to answer questions. I will not turn you into my co-counsel." She looked at the envelope. She did not touch it. "You wrote a book," she said softly, not unkindly. "I wrote a map," I said. "For me. You do not have to walk it." She nodded. "Thank you," she said, and made the words sound like both a boundary and a door. Ethan gathered the papers with the fussy motions of a man who has spent a life keeping his desk neat while his decisions made the mess. "We can talk about this at home," he said to me. "We do not have a home," I said. "We have a house with my name on the deed and your toothbrush in a cup. You may come by tomorrow to pick up what fits in one suitcase and one box. There will be a list. You will sign it." He looked at Elena as if she might save him from administrative reality. She stared back as if she had just discovered a new species and did not want to take it home. I stood. "I am going to leave first," I said to her. "You can stay. You can go. You can order dessert and make this table a place you sat for yourself." She lifted her chin. What are you going to do? She asked. Go home, I said. Sleep. Wake up. Keep my name. The manager appeared like a guardian angel with a check. This has been taken care of, he said gently. By the house. By me, I corrected, and handed him my card. Please add a generous tip. He gave me a look that said he understood gratitude should not be a casualty of catastrophe. Of course, he said. I picked up my card with the gold letters. I tucked it into my bag with the timeline and the little pockets where I keep pieces of myself that men do not get to borrow anymore. I looked at Elena one last time. It was never you, I said, and left before the tears had the power to make me sit. Outside, the air was the kind that wakes you without slapping. I walked to my car with the steps of a woman who had just chosen a door and closed it softly behind her. I did not look back. There is a kind of quiet that arrives only after you decide. It is not peace exactly. It is a ceasefire between the part of you that clings to the old story and the part that prints the new script and tapes it to the mirror. I got home, turned on one lamp, and sat at the kitchen table. The peonies on the counter were open now, showy and soft and almost obscene. I took them out of the vase, trimmed the stems, and set them back with fresh water because tenderness is not a resource you need to ration when the person who needs it is you. I texted Noor, served. She responded with a check mark and the words, lock the door. Sleep with your phone on Do Not Disturb. I am on call. I put my phone on the counter face down, because news does not get kinder if you stare at it. I washed my face, took off the dress that belonged to this chapter, and folded it gently as if fabric could feel pride. I put on a t-shirt that smelled like laundry and not like him. I slipped into bed and lay there listening to the house settle into the version of itself that holds only one person and manages just fine. Sleep came in pieces. When it broke, I did not fight it. I stared at the ceiling and whispered one small sentence to make my mouth remember how to say things that matter. I am not your secret. Morning brought light that did not know or care what I had done. I made coffee. I drank it on the steps. I answered the first email from Noor with my preferred time for the bank appointment. I answered a second email from my manager with, I will be in after lunch. I did not answer two texts from Ethan that said, we need to talk, and then, are you serious? I do not negotiate with people who call truth a prank. At 10, I drove to the storage unit where we keep the holiday boxes and the bad art from his bachelor years. I rented a small additional unit for one suitcase and one box. I labeled a clipboard with pickup items and attached a pen with a string because I believe in making things obvious when feelings might make people sloppy. At noon, I was at the bank. The manager there was the kind of person who has lived long enough to recognize both ceremony and emergency. She did not waste my time with sympathy I could not cash. She looked at the file, looked at me, and said, we will protect you. She clicked keys and slid papers and said initial here and sign here, and the kind of power you can hold in a pen began to feel like a miracle invented to be used. By 2, the head of people operations at Ethan's firm had replied to Noor's letter with the exact tone I wanted to hear. We received the notice. We will review travel records and adjust reimbursement routes immediately. We will not tolerate misuse of company funds or time. We will communicate with Ethan directly. By 3, a friend texted from a number I had not used for gossip in years. He is an idiot, she wrote. You are not. I wrote back, both things can be true, because absolutes make for great songs and lousy days. At 4, I placed the suitcase and the box in the foyer and set a timer on my phone, 2 hours. I wrote a note that said, you may take these. If you want anything else, make a list and submit it to Noor. Do not linger. Do not tour. Do not speak. I taped it above the handle like a new house rule. At 6, he came. He did not knock. He tried the door. It did not open because I am a woman who listens to advice and turns deadbolts. He knocked then. I did not answer. He texted. This is childish. I wrote back, this is adult. He stood on the porch for a long minute and then left, the weight of his suitcase scratching the wood in a line I could sand later. At 9, I wrote in the timeline, after. It felt like a word people overuse. Tonight it felt precise. 2 days later, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize and a city code I now knew too well. I let it go to voicemail. The transcription began to bloom on my screen like a slow bruise. "This is Elena," it read. "I do not want to talk about him. I want to ask you one question about me." I called back. She answered on the first ring with that same quiet law she had brought to the booth. "Thank you for calling," she said. "Thank you for asking," I replied. We did not do the dance women are taught to do where we compliment each other's hair while holding our breath. We did not do the movie thing where we compare notes until one of us cries and the other one forgives for the sake of runtime. We did not say his name. "What did you tell yourself," she asked, "when you did not yet have proof but you had the feeling?" I looked at the peonies on my counter, now nearly done with their performance, petals bowl-curled like hands at rest. I told myself I would rather be the person who believed a good lie for a while than the person who told it forever, I said. And then I told myself I owed the truth more than I owed my pride. She exhaled. "I kept thinking I was sophisticated because I did not need to snoop," she said. "Turns out sophistication is a poor bodyguard." "Turns out," I echoed. We were quiet for a beat, and it was not awkward. It was the kind of quiet people share when they are building a shelf in a room together and no one wants to say they are tired in case the other person sits down first. "I am not asking to be friends," she said finally. "I am asking if you will send me the map." "The timeline?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Not so I can read your story like a novel. So I can know where to put my foot." "I will send it," I said. "With the parts that belong to you highlighted. You can ignore the rest." "Thank you," she said. "And Raven?" "Yes." "Happy anniversary," she said, and the sentence did not taste like theft. It tasted like a ribbon cut on a building we would both use in very different ways. After we hung up, I emailed Noor to confirm which pieces I could share without turning this into a brief. She responded with the green light and a note, "Decency is still admissible." I sent Elena a trimmed timeline with 3 sections bolded: first overlap, rehearsed excuses, bank Mondays. I added a 4th section for her that had no entries yet, after. She wrote back, "I will fill this in," and I believed her. That night, I took out my own calendar and drew a small star on today. Not my wedding anniversary. Not the day I discovered the sticker on a bin. The day I took a call I could have ignored and chose to treat another woman like a person instead of a mirror. I poured a glass of seltzer, not wine, and toasted that small star. "To us," I said, and this time I meant women who will not drag each other into the dark just because a man turned off the lights. Consequence arrived by email before it arrived by rumor. Ethan's firm sent a formal notice that his expense privileges were suspended pending a full audit. Words like improper routing and policy breach do not sound dramatic, which is why they are so effective. Drama is for parties. Policy is for days like this. Noor forwarded the audit request to me with a one-line comment, "Stay quiet. Let them do their job." I did. Silence can be service when you choose it. The separation moved the way trains do when they are run by people who like timetables. We listed, we valued, we traded. The house remained mine because the math said so and because my name was on it. The car he loved to post about on weekends went to him because assets do not care about appearances and I do not care about acceleration. He tried once to send me a letter with a paragraph about love and a paragraph about ownership. Noor replied with a letter about paragraphs that matter. He tried again to use a friend as a courier for his feelings. I returned the friend to the sidewalk with kindness and the message, "We do not do that here." In the city with the red door and the soft sweaters, Elena made her own moves. I did not know the details because we had decided to give each other only the kind of updates that help and not the kind that turn adult life into a shared diary. Once, she sent me a single line, "File opened." I sent back one word, "Standing." Work noticed I was lighter. People are nosy and also kind. My manager took me to lunch and did not ask questions she was not entitled to. She said, "You did something hard without setting everything on fire." I said, "Fire is for warmth and warning, not for cooking dinner every night." She laughed and said, "Put that on your next performance review," and I said I would. On our old anniversary date, I did not stay inside. I went to the river with a notebook and the place card that said my name in gold. I set the card on the bench beside me and wrote a tradition. Not a rule. A thing I would do each year that had nothing to do with the way he had once tied his tie or the way I had once cut peonies and arranged them like hope. My tradition: on this day I will buy myself something that takes a little time and leaves a mark. A book with paragraphs I underline. A plant that will outlive a season. A class where my hands learn a new motion. I started with the plant. I named it after, and then I apologized to it in case it resented being given a name with so much work to do. That evening, I cooked a meal that did not require anyone else to like it. I ate at the table with one place setting and a good fork. I did not light candles. I did not put on music. I did not perform my own joy. I simply lived in it for an hour without comment. At 9, an email from Noor: audit complete. He is on probation. Travel now requires dual sign-off. Your notice helped them fix a hole bigger than your marriage. I read it twice, not because I doubted it, but because it felt like the kind of sentence I would want to remember when someone tells me silence would have been more elegant. We met once more, in a lawyer's conference room with carpets that could swallow a secret hole. Noor sat beside me. Ethan sat across with a man who wore a tie like a flag he did not salute anymore. "This is the last meeting," Noor said at the start, as if naming the boundary might keep it from slipping. We reviewed the schedule of assets one final time. We signed. The pen scratched. The witnesses stamped. It was boring, which is the highest compliment you can pay to a process designed to keep feelings from pulling the fire alarm. When the papers were done, Ethan looked at me the way you look at a house you are moving out of, as if you can force it to hold a little longer if you memorize the shape of the windows. "I loved you," he said. "I believe you," I said. "I also believe you loved being the man you got to be when you stood next to me. Those are not the same." He swallowed. "Do you hate me?" "I do not carry you," I said. "Hate is heavy." He nodded, almost grateful, as if I had handed him permission to be exactly the man he had arrived as. He stood, gathered his copy of the Life we had just unbraided, and said, "Take care, Raven." "You too," I said, because politeness is not a casualty of war when the war is over. Outside, Noor touched my shoulder. "You did that well," she said. "I did not throw a chair," I said. "That is my prize." She smiled. "Your prize is the rest of your life." On the way home, I stopped by the paper shop and had the clerk make one more card. Same heavy cream. Same gold ink. It read Raven again, because I do not need a new name. On the back, in small letters, I asked her to write, I kept the pen. 3 months later, the plant named after had outgrown its first pot. I slid it gently into a larger one and thanked it for making room where I had not noticed there could be any. The house felt like a place designed for one person and her friends and a future that did not need to be defined around a man's calendar. Elena sent one email in that time. "I am okay," it said. "I am tired in the way you get when you move furniture. But I am okay." I wrote back, standing, and then did not send another line, because sometimes solidarity is best measured in how little you ask someone to give you back. On my new anniversary, I bought myself a book and wrote my name in the front like a child who likes to see proof of possession. I underlined a sentence about courage that did not make courage sound like a parade. I went to the river and read the same page 3 times and let the words do the work they were hired to do. I keep the place card in a drawer with passports and spare keys. Some nights I take it out and set it on the table for dinner, not as a joke, not as a memorial, but as a reminder that a name on a small square of paper can be a ceremony when you choose it to be. It is amazing how much you can bless without a priest. If you are listening to this because your own florist said the wrong name or your own gut learned a new language overnight, here is what I can give you that is not advice and not a command. It is a sentence I wrote on a sticky note and stuck to the inside of my cabinet where the coffee lives. You are allowed to make tomorrow yours. Not to ruin his. Not to compare yours to hers. Not to make a museum of the pain and charge admission. To make a plan that does not require you to set yourself on fire to keep anyone warm. Tell me one small thing you will keep. A chair. A morning. A pen. Say it out loud in the comments, or just whisper it where no one can hear you but you will know you did. If this story steadied you for even 1 mile, subscribe and stay. I tell these stories not because revenge is sweet, but because truth is solid. There is room at this table for every name that was written small and is ready to try gold. I kept the pen. You can have a turn.